Everyone remembers Michael Jordan as unstoppable, the calm assassin, the man who never flinched. But there was one night, one moment, when even Jordan lost control. The night his discipline broke, his fury took over, and his code, the sacred mental code that built his empire, shattered before millions. This is not about stats. Not about glory. This is about what happens when obsession turns to rage, and when the greatest player alive crosses his own line. Tonight, we go inside the night Jordan lost control, and the hidden war that changed him forever. Chapter 1. Control is everything, until it isn't. He controlled everything. Every shot. Every step. Every glare. Michael Jordan didn't just play basketball, he dictated reality. He made the court his kingdom, and emotion his enemy. That was his code. Control. At all costs. But control has a price. And no one can pay it forever. That night, the night he lost control, didn't start with a fight. It started years earlier. In quiet gyms. In the smell of sweat and leather. In the sound of his father's voice saying, "Don't react. Win instead." Jordan learned early that emotion is a weapon. But in the wrong hands, it explodes. The Bulls are gods in human form. But inside the locker room, before the cameras, before the cheers, there's a man staring at the floor. Laces untied. Hands clenched. Breathing through his teeth. He's calm. Too calm. And everyone in that room knows what that means. Jordan's silence was never peaceful. It was pressure, compressed, weaponized. His teammates would say it later, when he went quiet, you knew a storm was coming. Because for Jordan, control wasn't just about basketball. It was about identity. Losing control meant losing himself. And that was something he couldn't allow. Jordan's control came from obsession. Every slight, every comment, every doubt, filed, stored, remembered. He wasn't fueled by applause. He was fueled by disrespect. Opponents learned fast. Don't trash talk him. Don't look him in the eye too long. Don't laugh near him after a miss. Because he'd turn that moment into your punishment. He'd remember it, days later, weeks later, and bury you on the court. That's not competitiveness. That's control. Calculated, deliberate control. He built a dynasty out of that mindset. 6 rings. Endless stories. But behind that glory, a question grew louder with every victory. How long can a man hold back everything he feels before it breaks him? Control made him unstoppable. But control also made him alone. Every legend hides a wound. For Jordan, it was the fear of weakness. He hated it. In himself. In others. That's why he attacked teammates in practice. Why did he push them until they broke? Because weakness to him was infection, and he refused to catch it. There's a story his teammates whisper even today. A scrimmage turned into a fight. Steve Kerr standing up. A punch thrown. A silence that followed like thunder before rain. That wasn't about anger. That was about control slipping through his fingers. Jordan once said, "I don't want to be your friend in battle." And he meant it. He couldn't afford softness. He couldn't afford emotion. Because emotion, he believed, made you lose. But every man who tries to bury emotion eventually digs his own grave. That year, the pressure wasn't just physical, it was psychological warfare. Opponents wanted to break the myth. They wanted to see if the king could bleed. And one night, one game, they found the trigger. A bad call. A smirk from the other bench. A shove too hard under the rim. The crowd chanting louder, the lights burning hotter. And then, the mask cracked. He snapped. Words turned to shouts. Precision turned to fury. It was brief, seconds, maybe less, but it was real. He lost control. And in that instant, everyone saw the man behind the machine. Control is power. But when you live by control, losing it feels like death. After that night, he sat in the locker room longer than usual. Silent. Head down. No one dared speak. Because they all saw something sacred break. The unbreakable had broken. He'd won the game. But inside, he'd lost the one thing that made him unstoppable, his own order. He replayed it in his head for days. Every second. Every word. Every look. That's the curse of obsession. It doesn't forgive, and it doesn't forget. He wasn't angry at the referee, or the opponent. He was angry at himself. Because he let emotion own him, the one thing he swore he'd never do. Let's step back. What does this moment mean? It's the paradox of greatness. The higher you rise, the smaller the margin for error becomes. One crack, one emotional lapse, and everything feels like collapse. Jordan's outburst wasn't a weakness. It was a symptom of pressure, perfection, and humanity. Because control, by nature, is fragile. It's glass, shining, sharp, and breakable. And the stronger you grip it, the more it cuts. That's the cost of obsession. The brilliance of control, and the madness it hides. Every athlete wants control. Every person wants composure. But control without emotion isn't strength, it's suppression. Jordan learned that night what most never do: you can't outrun emotion. You can only master it. And mastery doesn't come from denial. It comes from understanding your rage, shaping it, not hiding it. He lost control once. And it changed him forever. From that night on, he didn't fight emotion. He learned to use it. That's the real secret. Control isn't silence. It's a command. He won the game, but lost a part of himself. And that loss would become his greatest teacher. Because every code, no matter how perfect, must be tested in fire. Coming up next. Chapter 2, The Code of the Killer. How Jordan built the mental law that ruled the league, and why breaking it almost destroyed him. Chapter 2, The Code of the Killer. He had a code. Not written in books. Not taught in schools. It was his law. His doctrine. His weapon. Focus. Attack. Dominate. Move on. This was Michael Jordan. And this code, the one no one dared question, defined him. That night changed everything. 1992, Chicago Stadium. The Bulls are up by 2 in the closing seconds. The Pistons are relentless. Dennis Rodman is lurking. Isaiah Thomas is baiting. And Jordan, standing at the top of the key, sweat dripping, eyes locked, knows the stakes are higher than the scoreboard. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't blink. He's already replaying every move in his mind, every shove, every scowl, every whisper from the bench. The crowd roars, but Jordan hears nothing. Nothing but his own heartbeat. He never breaks character. Until he does. The Jordan Code wasn't theory. It was survival. Every opponent. Every referee. Every moment was a battlefield. Trash talk? Fuel. A missed call? Fuel. A cheap foul? Fuel. He turned every slight into motivation. Every insult into an internal war. Every moment of doubt, and everyone doubted him, became a reason to dominate. Take the 1989 Eastern Conference Finals. Bulls vs. Pistons. The bad boys, brutal, relentless, physical. They tried to intimidate him. They tried to bully him into breaking. But Jordan's code forbade it. No emotion. No retaliation. Pure focus. That was the law. Control first. Dominate second. Move on always. He never broke character. Until he did. The sound of a referee whistle cuts sharply. A heartbeat thumps under a slow-motion crowd cheer. And that was the danger. Living under a code that demands perfection is a prison. He could conquer anyone, but could he conquer himself? Every legend has enemies, some on the court, some inside the mind. For Jordan, the fiercest war was internal. Every scowl, every shove, every jab was stored. Every slight was catalogued. Every doubt became a target. And then there were the fights. Not always visible. Not always physical. sometimes mental. Like the time he faced the New York Knicks in the playoffs. They tried to get under his skin. They tried to make him angry, reckless. He stayed calm. Smiled at the referee. Dribbled. Scored. That's mastery. But mastery has limits. He was human. Every human has a breaking point. Every human carries chaos under the skin. He never broke character. Until he did. And it came that night. A late-game foul. A snide comment from the other bench. The arena erupted. The pulse of the city thrummed through his veins. Jordan snapped. Not in rage at the opponent. Not at the foul. At the betrayal of his own code. He had lived by it for years. Every win, every loss, every triumph, governed by the law he created. And in that instant, the code fractured. Words exploded. Shoves almost followed. Time slowed. Teammates froze. Fans cheered. But this wasn't entertainment. This was real. This was blood in the mind. This was chaos breaking a man who prided himself on order. That night, he learned something every champion must eventually face. You can obey a code, but the code can betray you. Step back. Look closer. What happened here? The Jordan Code was a weapon. But weapons can wound their wielder. It demanded perfection. It demanded suppression of fear. It demanded that he never show weakness. But humans are not machines. That outburst, brief, violent, controlled yet chaotic, revealed the truth. Even the greatest are fragile. Jordan's genius was not that he never lost control. It was that he understood the cost of losing it. He turned every failure, every lapse, every crack into a lesson. He converted rage into strategy. He converted frustration into focus. And above all, he learned that control is not absence of emotion, it is mastery of it. Here is what we learn. Every elite athlete, every leader, every competitor carries a code. Some live by it flawlessly. Some are destroyed by it. Jordan's code: focus, attack, dominate, move on. It created greatness. It nearly destroyed him. The lesson is sharp, clear, unforgiving. Control is not about denying emotion. Control is about channeling it. Harness it. Shape it. Use it. And when it threatens to break you, recognize it. Face it. Learn from it. That night changed everything. He had a choice: lose control or make history. He chose history. He rebuilt the code. Stronger. Sharper. Deadlier. You don't escape pressure. You face it. That's where legends are born, not in comfort, but in chaos. He mastered the law of dominance. He bent rage into precision. He learned that a code is only as strong as the mind that wields it. But mastery is never final. Because every new rival, every new challenge, every new moment of chaos tests even the strongest mind. Coming up next. Chapter 3, The Discipline of Rage. Next, we go inside the moments when fury itself becomes the teacher, and the court becomes the battlefield. Chapter 3. The spark nobody saw coming. Something was different that night. You could feel it in the air. The arena smelled like tension. Every fan, every player, every coach could feel it, even if they didn't know why. That night changed everything. Jordan walked onto the court, shoulders tight, jaw clenched. The Bulls faced the Detroit Pistons, the bad boys. Relentless. Ruthless. Unforgiving. They had a history, a score to settle, and a style made to provoke him. He'd faced them before. Years of battles. Of slaps, pushes, fouls, and insults. He had controlled himself. Always. Until now. The build-up wasn't just physical. It was psychological. Jordan had spent the previous night replaying every criticism, every headline, every sneer from the media. The pressure wasn't just the playoffs. It was the world watching him. It was every critic, every doubter, every person who said he couldn't dominate the bad boys. And then there was fatigue. Muscles tight, mind sharper than ever, but weary. Even the strongest mind has limits. That night, a spark was waiting. A whisper. A shove. A look. Something small, insignificant to anyone else. But to Jordan, it was a trigger. The first quarter started normally. Shots were made. Fouls called. Trash talk exchanged. But the Pistons pressed harder than ever. Dennis Rodman, unpredictable, chaotic, kept nudging, shoving, testing. Isaiah Thomas grinned. It was intentional. They were trying to crack him. And then it happened. A bad call. A player shoved him under the rim. The crowd erupted. Jordan's eyes flickered, just for a moment, and that was enough. The spark ignited. That spark was more than anger. There was accumulated pressure. Years of battles. Years of perfection. Years of self-imposed discipline. It was everything coming to the surface in a single instant. Jordan didn't shout, not yet. He didn't throw a punch, not yet. But the storm had begun. He moved differently. Focused. Sharp. Calculating. Every glance, every step carried weight. Every move told a story of control meeting chaos. The spark nobody saw coming was proof that even legends are human. Even the greatest minds are vulnerable. The fire doesn't start with a blow. It starts in the mind. It starts in the subtle provocations no one else notices. It starts in fatigue, frustration, and the unseen pressure nobody can feel but the one in the spotlight. That night changed everything. He had a choice: lose control or make history. He chose history. The spark was just the beginning. And the game, the psychological battlefield, had only just begun. He faced the first flash of chaos and survived. But surviving isn't enough. The real test, the breaking point, was coming. Coming up next. Chapter 4, When the Mask Cracks. Next, we go inside the instant Jordan's legendary composure finally faltered, and what it revealed about the man behind the myth. Chapter 4. When the Mask Cracks. Control. 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 Gone. It happened in the blink of an eye. One shove. One bad call. One glance from the other bench. And suddenly, the mask Jordan wore for years shattered. He was at the top of the key. The Pistons closing in. Dennis Rodman jabbed him under the rim. Isaiah Thomas smirked. The crowd erupted. And in that split second, the world saw something no one had ever seen. Jordan's eyes flared. Jaw tight. Teeth clenched. Hands trembled, just barely. Every muscle wound tight. The silent storm he carried for years, the weight of perfection, the obsession with control, exploded. Teammates froze. They knew that look. They had trained under it. They had followed it. But never had they seen it break. Because this wasn't just anger. This was a man fighting himself. His own obsession. His own perfection. His own code. Every shove, every word, every whistle, it wasn't the opponent. It wasn't the referees. It was the pressure he had stored for years. And now, it had found its release. In slow motion, every second stretched. The arena's lights burned brighter. The crowd's roar became a blur. He pivoted. He spun. The ball left his hands, precise, yet raw with emotion. Control, fleeting. Chaos, inevitable. Control. 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 Gone. He scored. But the victory felt different. The audience saw domination. The cameras captured brilliance. But the locker room, his teammates, saw fear. Because they knew, this wasn't the Jordan they knew. Analysis. The mask was a shield. It protected his ego. It protected his legend. But shields can crack. And when they do, the raw human underneath is exposed. That night changed everything. He had a choice: surrender to the chaos or harness it. Jordan chose history. He channeled the explosion, the fury, into precision. He converted rage into action. He converted pressure into domination. Takeaway: mastery isn't absence of emotion. It's my command of it. The mask may crack. You may falter. But that is where greatness is forged, in the fire of chaos, not comfort. He had cracked. He had glimpsed the storm within. But cracking is not falling. It is awakening. Coming up next. Chapter 5, The Enemy Within. Next, we go inside the mind, the internal war that pushed Jordan to the edge and revealed the true cost of obsession. Chapter 5, The Enemy Within. He wasn't fighting them. He was fighting himself. That night, Jordan discovered the enemy inside. Not the Pistons. Not the referees. Not even the media. It was him. His obsession. His code. His perfection. Every drill he'd endured. Every insult he'd stored. Every expectation, his own, the league's, the world's, collided inside him. And it wasn't pretty. The crowd cheered. The cameras flashed. And yet, in that instant, Jordan felt isolated. Detached. Fragmented. Psychologists call it ego death. The performance identity, the mask he wore, the myth he'd become, fractured. He realized briefly that the man everyone worshipped could fail. That the legend could bleed. That control was an illusion. He wasn't panicking. Not yet. But the storm inside him surged. Every movement, every glance, every step carried tension. He wasn't fighting them. He was fighting himself. Every push, every jab from the Pistons became amplified. Because they weren't just challenging him physically. They were testing the core of his identity. And he felt it. Every doubt he'd buried, every fear he denied, every flaw he'd ignored, all rose to the surface. That's when the fragmentation began. His mind split between instinct and control, between rage and precision, between chaos and code. He remembered every failure, every loss, every time someone said he wasn't enough. And now, in real time, it threatened to undo him. The enemy within is the hardest opponent to face. You can outjump, outrun, outscore anyone. But you cannot outfight your own obsession, your own ego, your own fear of losing yourself. Jordan's brilliance wasn't just in skill. It was in recognition. Recognition that the fiercest battle isn't on the court, it's inside the mind. That night, he confronted the truth. The enemy is always closer than you think. Takeaway: greatness is forged in inner warfare. The man who controls his inner chaos masters the outer world. He wasn't fighting them. He was fighting himself. And in that fight, he discovered that mastery is not the absence of struggle, it's dominance over it. He survived the storm within. But survival wasn't triumph. Because the cost of obsession leaves scars unseen. Coming up next. Chapter 6. The Price of Perfection. Next, we explore what it truly takes to maintain dominance, and the sacrifices hidden behind every championship ring. Chapter 6. The Price of Perfection. Perfection has a cost. And Michael Jordan was paying it, in full. Every jump. Every sprint. Every shot, drilled into his body, etched into his mind. Every victory demanded more than talent. It demanded sacrifice. Pain. Obsession. Isolation. That night, he moved across the court with precision, but his body screamed. Tight muscles. Aching knees. Fingers numb from tension. The crowd cheered. The cameras captured brilliance. But no one saw the cost hidden behind every glance, every calculated step. Jordan had built his life around control, discipline, and domination. But perfection is a double-edged sword. It sharpens skill. It fractures relationships. It gnaws at the soul. He had practiced relentlessly. Sacrificed sleep, comfort, and even companionship. Because greatness demands obsession. Because legends are born in chaos, not comfort. And yet, even obsession has limits. Every push from the Pistons, every bad call, every jab from an opponent, it wasn't just a physical challenge. It was a reminder. A reminder that control is fragile. That perfection exacts a toll. That even the greatest are human. He had spent years constructing a code: focus, attack, dominate, move on. But the price of perfection is not measured in rings or stats. It is measured in the fragments left behind. The exhaustion. The fear. The moments when control slips, and the mask threatens to fall. Every champion has a cost ledger. Jordan's currency was himself. Every victory required inner compromise. Every success demanded relentless pressure. Every record held a shadow of fatigue, obsession, and hidden struggle. And yet, he persisted. Because mastery is never free. Because dominance is forged in pain, chaos, and the willingness to endure what most cannot. The lesson is sharp. Clear. Perfection is not about flawlessness. It is about persistence. It is about bearing the cost silently, then using it to dominate. He had a choice: succumb to exhaustion or convert it into power. He chose power. He endured. He excelled. That night changed everything. He had learned that greatness isn't measured by victories alone. It is measured by the price one is willing to pay. He survived the cost. But survival isn't mastery. Because obsession leaves its scars, visible and invisible. Coming up next. Chapter 7. The game that changed his teammates. Next, we witness the collision with a rival who tested every limit, every ounce of control, and every piece of his fragile perfection. Chapter 7. The game that changed his teammates. Silence. Confusion. Realization. The locker room was quiet. Too quiet. The myth they had followed for years had cracked. Michael Jordan, untouchable, unstoppable, flawless, was suddenly human. And they saw it. That night, they had watched him snap. Not in rage at the opponent. Not in defiance of the referee. But in confrontation with himself. Control. 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 Gone. The team had trained under his dominance. They had followed his example, mimicked his obsession, absorbed his perfection. But now, silence. They realized the cost. They realized the vulnerability. It wasn't just about the game. It was about the man behind the myth. Every shove, every jab, every subtle provocation, all of it had accumulated. And for the first time, they saw the weight of the obsession. The isolation. The relentless pursuit of perfection. Scottie Pippen sat quietly, staring at the floor. Horace Grant leaned against the lockers, uncharacteristically still. No one spoke. Because everyone knew, this wasn't the Jordan they had known. This was the man who carried the storm alone, and it had spilled. They watched him as he peeled off the sweat-soaked jersey, as the tension drained from his shoulders, but the lesson remained. They saw fatigue etched into his body. They saw frustration simmering beneath every glance. They saw obsession, isolation, and the weight of perfection. And suddenly, the myth became real. It was a humbling moment. The locker room, once filled with admiration and awe, now held understanding. They understood the human behind the god. They realized leadership isn't just about dominance. It's about bearing the cost silently, and still standing. When the leader bleeds, the team learns what pain really costs. They learn respect. They learn empathy. They learn the price of obsession. Jordan's mask, the invincible, unbreakable exterior, had slipped. And in that slip, the team saw the lesson no victory could ever teach. Greatness isn't just measured by rings or stats. It is measured by the courage to face your own chaos and still command the respect of those who follow you. Takeaway: teams follow the man. They admire the legend. But they respect the human. When the leader falters, when the mask cracks, they see not invincibility, they see courage. Courage to endure. Courage to rise. Courage to face the chaos within and continue. The impact of that night stretched beyond a single game. It shifted the dynamic of the Bulls forever. Teammates no longer feared the myth. They understood him. They followed him differently. With awareness. With reverence for the human struggle behind the dominance. That night changed everything. The team had learned a fundamental truth. The cost of greatness is not only personal, it shapes everyone who stands beside you. And in that lesson lay the ultimate form of leadership. He had shown them what it meant to bleed, to fracture, to survive. Not all leaders can do that. Not all teams can endure it. But the Bulls could. Because they had witnessed the truth. He had shown them the cost of obsession. He had revealed the fragility behind the mask. But the ultimate test, the one that would define legacy, still lay ahead. Coming up next. Chapter 8, The Final Standoff. Next, we enter the arena where pride, rivalry, and obsession collide, and the ultimate moment of reckoning unfolds. Chapter 8. The public never saw the truth. They saw the legend. They didn't see the man. The media spun a story. A highlight reel. A frame-by-frame narrative crafted for the public eye. Competitive spirit. Passion. A moment of fiery genius. But the truth? They buried it. They rewrote it. They reframed it. Because the world wants heroes. Not humans. Not the chaos beneath the mask. Not the storm behind the eyes. Behind the cameras, behind the bright lights, the truth was different. Coaches whispered in locker rooms. Players shared knowing glances. Scouts noted tension in notebooks, details unseen on broadcast tape. Jordan wasn't just angry. He wasn't just frustrated. He was at the edge of human endurance. Burnout. Fatigue. Pressure stacked like mountains on a man who had carried the world on his shoulders. They saw the legend. They didn't see the man. The press wrote columns celebrating his performance. They praised his tenacity, his willpower, his unrelenting competitive spirit. But no headline mentioned the fracture. No feature captured the psychological toll. No camera lens could catch the tremor in his hands, the tightness in his jaw, the human fragility hidden behind a flawless exterior. Inside the team, the story was different. Teammates recalled the subtle shifts, the weight in his shoulders, the brief glances of frustration, the silent moments when he isolated himself, breathing, recalibrating, containing the storm inside. They knew the spark that night wasn't just about a game. It was about years of pressure, years of expectation, years of obsession colliding at once. Jordan's coaches spoke cautiously. The performance, one said, was flawless. But the man, he was at the edge. We could see it. An assistant whispered. He wasn't just competing with them. He was battling himself. Every move was a fight against his own limits. Burnout. Fragmentation. The hidden cost of perfection. The public never saw it. The cameras never caught it. The highlight reels erased it. They saw the legend. They didn't see the man. Psychologists might call it the collision of ego and identity. The performance self, the myth, the mask, all under pressure. It wasn't anger alone. It wasn't frustration alone. It was human fragility exposed in real time, compressed into minutes of gameplay, replayed endlessly in the court of public opinion. The story presented to the world was clean, neat, and digestible. But reality was messy, complex, unforgiving. Jordan wasn't a god that night. He was a man on the edge. A human who had carried more than anyone could see. And yet, he performed. He scored. He dominated. He survived. But the survival came with invisible scars. Lessons unseen by the public eye. Lessons only those closest to him could recognize. They saw the legend. They didn't see the man. Humanity is hidden behind the myth. Every athlete who becomes larger than life carries shadows behind the spotlight. The public admires the outcomes, the statistics, the glory. They rarely witness internal warfare, the mental breakdowns, the sleepless nights, the collision of ego and obsession. Recognition of the truth matters more than celebration of the image. Jordan's story that night was not only a testament to skill, but a study in fragility. Even legends fracture. Even myths bleed. Even gods wrestle with the human within. They saw the legend. They didn't see the man. And that's the truth the cameras could never capture. That's the story behind the headlines. That's where mastery meets mortality. The public never saw it. But the team did. The coaches did. And Jordan knew. He carried the burden silently, forging it into relentless dominance. Coming up next. Chapter 9, The Redemption Arc. Next, we explore how the man rebuilt the mask, not to hide, but to master the chaos within, and redefine his legend forever. Chapter 9. Rebuilding the mind of a killer. He had cracked. He had bled. He had faced himself, raw, fractured, exposed. And yet, defeat did not claim him. Because Michael Jordan understood one fundamental truth: rage wins a battle. Composure wins a dynasty. The breakdown was a lesson, not a verdict. It was a signal, a mirror reflecting what obsession without control could cost. And Jordan learned. He absorbed it. He dissected every twitch, every tremor, every crack in the mask. Mental reconstruction began in silence. Alone on the court. Alone in the gym. Alone in his mind. Meditation-like focus. Breathing deep, steady, precise. The chaos outside existed, but inside, he built a fortress. Cold. Detached. Emotionally surgical. He replayed every mistake. Every moment the mask slipped. Every second of lost control. Not to punish himself, but to understand. To learn. To dominate. He reconstructed the mind of a killer. Step by step. Drill by drill. Every shot became a ritual. Every movement became intentional. Every glance, every reaction, measured. Composure replaced chaos. Precision replaced panic. Control replaced rage. The bulls noticed the shift immediately. Jordan's stare was sharper. His movements are more deliberate. Even his silence carried weight. He no longer erupted. He no longer reacted. He anticipated. Analysis. Mastery is built not in the storm, but after the storm. Rage is immediate. It consumes. It motivates me. But composure? Composure endures. It outlasts opponents, fatigue, and time itself. Jordan became both predator and monk. Balanced. Calculated. Relentless. He transformed the breakdown into fuel, the chaos into structure, the fear into dominance. Every step, every pivot, every shot carried the memory of the night control had slipped, and the knowledge that it would never happen again. A champion's mind is not born, it is rebuilt. After every fracture, after every crack, after every defeat, the mind must rise stronger. Jordan learned that battles are won with fire. Dynasties are won with ice. Rage can elevate a player in a moment. But composure cements a legacy forever. He trained his focus like steel. He drilled his calm like armor. He honed detachment until emotion served the game, not destroyed it. That night, he had faced himself. He had seen the chaos. He had confronted the enemy within. And he rebuilt. Not just as a player. Not just as a legend. But as a master of his own mind. Every game after that carried the mark of his rebirth. Every opponent felt calm before the storm. Every teammate followed the unwavering lead. The mask was back, but this time, it was earned. It wasn't a shield. It was a weapon. It was a choice. It was control. They saw the legend. They didn't see the human struggle. But the human struggle had forged the legend. The mask was rebuilt. The mind was sharpened. The chaos was mastered. Coming up next. Chapter 10, Legacy Beyond the Court. Next, we explore how mastery over self, obsession, and rage transformed not just a player, but an era, and left lessons for everyone who dares to face their own enemy within. Chapter 10. The Code Rewritten. In the end, it wasn't the victories that defined him. It wasn't the rings. It wasn't the records. It was the silence after the storm. Because that's where Michael Jordan finally understood. Control isn't silence. Control is mastery. He had spent years living by a single law. Focus. Attack. Dominate. Move on. The Jordan Code. It made him unstoppable. It made him a god. But gods can't bleed, and that night he did. The mask cracked. The myth collapsed. The man emerged. And from that collapse, something new was born. A new code. A rewritten philosophy of dominance. Emotion without chaos. Hunger without hate. Power without losing yourself. Every great warrior reaches this point, the breaking point where obsession eats identity. He had lived on the edge of rage, balancing between genius and madness. But after the breakdown, after the loss of control, Jordan found something even deadlier than rage. He found stillness. Stillness, the calm before the strike. Stillness, the space between noise and clarity. Stillness, where control isn't forced, it flows. He no longer needed to scream to dominate. He no longer needed to fight every ghost. He simply existed in command. The new Jordan was colder. Sharper. Not the same man who once punched teammates, or glared at cameras, or hunted every slight. This was the Jordan who smiled before killing your momentum. The Jordan who looked you dead in the eyes. Calm, quiet, merciless. He broke his code to rewrite it. He lost control to regain command. And that's the paradox of mastery. You can't truly control until you've faced what happens when you lose it. He learned that real strength isn't the absence of emotion, it's the precision of it. You don't bury the fire. You shape it. By the time he returned, the comeback, the repeat, the three-peat, the league had changed. But so had he. The hunger remained, but it wasn't wild anymore. It was cold, deliberate, and mathematical. Like a sniper's aim. Players who once thought they could bait him stopped trying. Opponents who used to talk trash watched him smile, not mock, just smile. Because that's when they knew they'd lost. He didn't play angry anymore. He inevitably played. That's where evolution happens, when instinct becomes awareness, when aggression becomes art. That's the transformation every champion faces, but few survive. He became his own opponent. He faced the ego that once fueled him, and turned it into wisdom. The man who once feared losing control now mastered the art of controlled fire. He could turn it on and off at will. That's not human. That's transcendence. He broke his code to rewrite it. He broke his code to rewrite it. He broke his code to rewrite it. He lost control to regain command. He lost control to regain command. He lost control to regain command. Every legend must face that moment, the collapse before the rise. For Jordan, it wasn't a fall from grace. It was a baptism in fire. He walked through it, burned, refined, remade. And when he emerged, he was no longer chasing greatness. He was defining it. The lesson? Greatness isn't perfection. It's controlled through imperfection. It's finding balance between chaos and calm, between ego and emptiness, between dominance and peace. The public saw a killer reborn. But inside, it was a man who had finally learned how to breathe again. He understood that legacy isn't what people remember about your power, it's what they never saw inside your silence. He broke his code to rewrite it. He lost control to regain command. And in that paradox, he found the truth of mastery. That you don't conquer the world by destroying it. You conquer it by mastering yourself. And that is where the legend ends. Not in noise. Not in victory. But in stillness. Because that's where control lives. That's where greatness breathes. And that's where Michael Jordan became not just a player, but a code rewritten into history. The final challenge. The night Jordan lost control wasn't a failure. It was a revelation. Because every legend, every warrior, faces that moment. When the mask slips. When the myth cracks. When the truth finally stares back. Control isn't about never breaking. It's about breaking, and coming back sharper. He lost his code, but he rebuilt it stronger. He burned down the myth, to become something real. And that's your challenge. Stop hiding behind composure. Stop pretending you're unshakable. Break. Feel. Rebuild. Because true dominance isn't staying calm. It's rising again after your own storm. This was the night Jordan lost control. If this story hit you deeper than the game, don't just watch, engage. Hit subscribe, drop your thoughts in the comments, and share this with someone who still believes legends never break. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We reveal the truth behind greatness.